You may already know by now that Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is being developed using the Unity engine. And to some, this may seem like an interesting choice because we haven't really seen any big MMOs developed on Unity yet. But is that because there's some sort of technical limitations, or is Visionary Realms just ahead of their time? I think this deserves a closer look.
This is BazgrimTV. Learn, laugh, level up.
First, let's discuss why Visionary Realms decided to go with Unity in the first place. Pantheon is the first game that VR has made, so at its inception, they of course did not have a ton of money to work with, being an independent startup company. This means they had to be very frugal with how they spent their resources in those early days. Some companies may custom build their own engines from scratch, but doing that would have cost VR a lot of precious time and money, so they opted to go with something that was pretty much already good to go, and that's where Unity comes in. Visionary Realms did not seek the help of a publisher that may have been able to fund bigger things like a custom engine, because they wanted to maintain complete creative control of the project. That meant that they would instead have to seek crowdfunding to support the project. But most people don't usually fund a project if they don't know what it looks like, so VR had to quickly develop a rough prototype of Pantheon, and that's exactly what Unity allowed them to do. Unity has a massive store filled with assets that VR could license at an affordable rate to quickly and easily start building a prototype of the world. Again, hiring artists to make every asset from scratch would have cost a lot of time and money that they just didn't have then. But I want to be very clear, it was never the intention to use these Unity assets in the launched game. They were simply placeholders so that they could have a proof of concept to show to the public and potential investors. Then, once they raised enough money, they could then afford to make custom assets to get the world to look exactly how they want it. And you can see that's pretty much the phase they're currently in now, in 2019, as they're well into the process of using their own in-house artists to create awesome assets like these from scratch. Okay, but now, moving forward, how can we know if Unity will be able to continue to provide for the game as it grows into a full-scale, epic MMORPG? I think Unity kinda gets a bad rap because a basic version of Unity is available to pretty much anyone. That means that any Joe Schmo wannabe developer can make a garbage game and proudly slap the Made with Unity tag on it. And once enough people do that, the general public starts to believe that Unity just isn't a good engine. But the key to Unity is that it's very flexible, which means it's about as good as the developers using it. So if you put Unity in the hands of experienced developers who know how to look under the hood and soup it up, the results will be drastically different. Right in the FAQ on Pantheon's website, it says this, quote, "While Unity originally may have been geared towards smaller and more simple games, a lot has changed since then. Unity's developers are committed to providing an engine every bit as capable as any other professional game engine. In fact, we have a special relationship with them, and they are excited to see a major MMO being developed using their technology." End quote. The thing that really sticks out about that to me is how they say they have a special relationship with the Unity team. And I think that's probably one of the benefits of having an industry veteran like Brad McQuaid on the team. He can use his big name to build those bridges and bring together some of the greatest minds in the business. We obviously don't know exactly what that relationship entails, but I think it's at least reassuring to know that Unity is aware of Pantheon and is motivated to make sure they do what they can to help Pantheon be the best it can be. But even regardless of that, in the April 2018 Pantheon newsletter, Visionary Realms Chief Technology Officer Daniel Kren, aka Sarudan, was asked if theoretically they were starting the project today, would they still use the Unity engine? And this was his answer. Quote, "Yes, most definitely. Unity's team of engineers are actively engaged in moving the engine forward, version after version. There is so much more that we can do today that wasn't possible when we first started. There's a lot of new tech coming out in the next couple of years that is going to allow us to push Pantheon even further." End quote. So in some ways, the reputation of Unity being a lesser game engine is simply outdated, and that's just something they'll have to deal with until someone who really knows how to use it can prove otherwise. In July 2018, gaming organization Fires of Heaven hosted a Q&A with some of the Pantheon developers. And in it, they asked the devs if they think that any other studios will make MMOs with Unity if Pantheon is successful. And here was their response. Quote, "I wouldn't be at all surprised. We've shown the game around a bit within the industry, and there have been many gasps of surprise as to what Unity is capable of. We have a strong team who are very clever in what they do, and are able to pull things off previously thought impossible for Unity. But Unity has been providing powerful tools and updates as well. We know it's a viable game engine for this kind of project, and I think other studios are realizing that now too." I think one of the best examples of how Visionary Realms is really surprising people with what Unity is capable of is the lighting, which can completely change the way a game looks. Remember how I said that Unity can be heavily customized to fit the needs of your particular game? That is going to be a huge factor on Pantheon's path to success. Visionary Realms technical artist Bruno Rhyme has already completely overhauled the lighting system in Unity. And in this stream from September 2017, they talked about how these changes have surprised even the Unity developers themselves.
So there's a little trick which we're doing with our shadows, and that the far shadows are not actually using the Unity shadow system. We've written our own. And part of our performance ability and the performance that you're seeing is that those shadows have very little impact in terms of GPU usage.
Okay, big thank you to chat, by the way. It looks like my on-off shadows were across the lake, but if we look to the left here, we can actually see the progression.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the trick is that the shadows are still drawing in the distance, even when you're turning your shadow distance down. It might seem like a small thing, but what that allows us to do, and if you turn it all the way down, you'll see the whole shadow system turn itself off. What that allows us to do is to ground everything. Everything feels so much more three-dimensional. The foliage, like you pointed out, it's voluminous when there are shadows, and it looks flat when there aren't. It's something we're pretty proud of, that we've developed in-house. And you'll see that roll out in every level. It'll be an integral part of the game.
Yeah, I don't know how much Bruno's planning on tooting his own horn, but I do just want to throw in there that what Bruno's doing really is even taking the Unity engine a little bit further than we imagined it could go. And so just want everyone to understand that a lot of these updates, part of the reason that it looks so good is because Bruno has really pushed what Unity can do in some pretty amazing ways.
In fact,
kudos.
Unity themselves, the developers of Unity, were surprised at the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that even the most beautiful graphics only go so far. What really matters is performance, especially when you have a lot of characters on screen at one time, such as in a raid. For a while, this was a pretty big concern for some. Can Unity handle large-scale raids? And again, for the most part, this is another one of those things that is heavily dependent on the skill of the developers. And fortunately, VR has a CTO who is obsessed with optimization. But there still has to be a ceiling somewhere, right? In 2018, VR announced their plans to launch the game, with raids geared toward groups of 12 and 24 people. Now, compared to some games, this may seem a little low, which triggered those concerns about Unity maybe just not being able to accommodate larger groups. But in the April 2019 Developer Roundtable, Joppa settled that once and for all.
very briefly, can Joppa clarify whether the 24-man raid limit he mentioned in a previous stream is intended as part of balancing encounter design challenge? And he said Vanguard comes to mind, or if it's because of engine limitations with Unity.
It is not because of engine limitations. I'll say that. And yes, it's part of balancing encounter designs, but we're open to expanding that raid size on an encounter-to-encounter basis as we move along. In that there may be clarify what I mean by that. Like there may be certain encounters where we exceed that limit in terms of just how many players are actually necessary to take the thing down. But the 24 person point is not a system limitation. It's our goal, kind of designing our raid encounters around at the moment.
So the Pantheon devs clearly seem very confident that Unity itself won't hold them back from accomplishing what they want and need to accomplish. Ultimately, only time will tell if the devs can tweak Unity enough to provide a smooth gameplay experience in Pantheon, but I think so far they've given us enough reason to believe that it's at least technically possible. It's just a matter of execution. So, don't knock it till you've tried it. I really hope you learned something from this video, and maybe it even eased some of your concerns about Unity being used to develop Pantheon. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe, and while you're at it, turn on notifications so that you can always stay up to date with my Pantheon coverage, because that's what this channel is all about. So, until the next video, my name is Bazgrim, and I need a more original sign-off.